So one of the other kinds of things I was thinking of to bring it back to Bruce Almighty, especially on those experiences, was obviously there's a lot of special effects in that film.
Right.
There's a lot of special effects shots, and like for example, the one that I always remember was like there's the bit where he's typing on a keyboard and he does it like really fast.
Yeah.
And was that like edit? So and that one's quite an easy one really, because that one is very much
That one's
just...
quite easy. I was actually able to the initial layout for that, I did it right in Lightworks.
I was just about to ask that. Was that something you did in Lightworks? Or like, did they get Jim Carrey just to type? Because I can imagine a man with that energy.
Oh, he types, and he types very fast, and then we're like, let's kick it up a notch, or kick it up 20 notches, and I just sped it up. Those are the easy ones, but yeah, there's lots of different films where I'll do lots of visual effects, and then.
Have there ever been ones where the visual effects have like altered the way you have to edit a scene, like once it comes back or once you get it? I'm not sure on the order. I don't even know what the order of this is.
Number one, you go with the performance. You cut it, whether it's all blue screen, green screen, whatever. Cut the performance, cut the scene, how you want it, how the director feels for the pacing and the timing, tempo of the scene. Send it out. Once we start getting the initial temps back from the VFX house, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I see. Or they've added some different dynamic that we weren't aware of in the background or something. Or it's like, oh, what if that happens here? Well, we need this to happen here. This cut needs to be moved over here. So then we'll go in and tweak the scene better.
Does that happen often? Is that something that like is it common? Is that a common occurrence of when you edit a scene, the performance is perfect, maybe it's on a green screen or there's like a CG character or something, it comes back and you're like, oh, actually, this has shifted the whole dynamic of the scene. Is that something that's common, or is it something?
Well, in my experience, my limited experience, I haven't had those kind of major reworkings because the VFX come back in and go, oh, well, that changes everything. It's like, no, because we had a pretty good concept of what it should be. Because then we're giving, like on Evan Almighty, we were working with both Rhythm and Hues and ILM. And so the concepts were pretty close to begin with. So, I mean, we're just fine tuning at that point. So it's like, oh, you know what? If this cut, we could do this. If this, move this cut a little bit here, or if we get a moment here before this, it's like, oh, let's open that up just a sec. Just, I've got a little bit of handle, but sometimes it's like, oh, well, we went past the handle, so we have to rescan the shot. But whatever the case.
If the setup of the joke is partly special effects based, you do... Right. I can't even think of an example off the top of my head, but if you have a thing where like you've set up a punchline, you set it up and you have to imagine, oh yeah, and at this point the CGI zebra comes in and does this or whatever. When you get it back, is that like, I was trying to kind of think, is that something that happens often where you're like, no, we need to all kind of resync
9 times out of 10, if it's a comedic sequence, it's going to get tighter.
Yeah. Do you find that you cut a lot of special effects frames and then you imagine like them in the CG houses where they're like, it took us an extra day to render those couple of frames you just cut out?
Exactly. Well, I mean, we get that with any VFX shot and somebody goes, oh, I want, 1 foot handles or 16 frame handles. It's like, well, that's all that work is going to get cut out. Why would I want to do that?
And for the audience at home, what does a 16-foot handle mean? What does that mean?
A 16 frame handle is, so the shot may be a certain length, but then I've got 16 frames that would be preceding the first frame. And then it's 16 frames additional after the last frame in the edit. So that way I could take it and roll the shot around, move it around. It's like maybe start it a little bit earlier and end it a little later if I wanted to lengthen the shot. That's why you would want handles on things. A lot of times, if you don't do your visual effects until after you log picture, then most visual effects houses are like, okay, 0 handles, because we're going to give you exactly what the cut is. And that way we don't have to do any more extra work on frames that are going to get cut out anyway. So.
Yeah. So with Lightworks specifics, especially from a technical standpoint, is there anything that you wish more people knew about with Lightworks, or like features or things that you can do in Lightworks that actually, you already mentioned the way the tracks come out. Is there any other features or things that you wish more people knew about? Because like that's the kind of thing that's like, yes, this is what makes Lightworks unique.
Well, the whole idea of the frame counter at the end of the timeline, if you throw other tracks out of sync because you didn't open all your tracks up, if you were, say, extending a shot and, oh, hey, that works great. Then all of a sudden you get all these red indicators on the side of the timeline going -20, -25, as you're going through, and it's tallying how much every track is now out of sync, which is great because sometimes you're in a hurry and you just want to extend it. And then it's like, oh, okay, now I got to clean that up. So instead of normally with other systems, you just kind of write down, okay, I've added 25 frames here. Okay, so then I'll go back in and adjust all my other tracks for the 25 frames. Well, in Lightworks, it's like, oh, okay, because I wasn't paying attention and didn't open all my tracks up, I only opened the one. So now I got to go back and I just click where I want it to adjust. Oh, here, let's open it here. Let's open it here. Let's open it here. Click on the red, button at the end of the timeline once, and all those tracks are adjusted where I want them to be adjusted and back in sync.
Wow.
It's single click fix, done. All my tracks are back in sync. So that is a major feature that I love. There's something else nobody talks too much about either, is asymmetric trimming. And it sounds good when you see the list of things that Lightworks does, but nobody really talks about doing it. So let's say I've got a shot of a guy who's firing a gun. Let's use that as an example. So I have the sound effect of the gun sunk up, because I didn't use production track because they were using, they weren't firing real bullets. So I've got a gunshot sound effect and it's sunk up to the shot. So if I'm adjusting the shot, I can open up and say I'm just rolling it. Well, I don't want to roll the sound effect because it's going to roll the sound into the trim and not be in the cut. So I can take and roll the shot if I wanted to get the gunshot to fire quicker, but say keep the length. But I can open up the sound effect so it doesn't roll, it just moves over. So it just, what's that called? Sliding? There's slipping and sliding. So then it would just slide backwards, say if I'm rolling the shot backwards. I can't do that in other editing systems. That's a two-step process for most systems. It's like, so I've adjusted that. Now I close that. Now I got to go and then take that sound effect and manually move that the same amount of frames that I've adjusted the other one, because I can't slip and slide at the same time. That's a very simple explanation, but it's amazing how many, it's an all-in-one process, and not many editors that I'm familiar with are able to do that in one.
Yeah,
it's a multi-step process.
That's been one of the most fascinating kind of themes I've noticed from our conversation today as well, is a lot of your work and the assistant's work, it's all built around efficiency. It's all built around time, saving time, because obviously making a film costs a lot of money, costs a lot of time. And often you are always finding ways to do things quicker, to be able to edit a scene quicker, to be able to, like you said, to do slip and slide. You're adjusting a scene, you need to adjust a sound effect, do that faster. Is there still anything that you found over the years that has, I imagine you found so many efficiencies and a lot of things.
Oh,
is
sure.
Is there any things, so there's a two-part question to this. One, what would you say are like the most efficiencies you found, and maybe even some advice on like, edit the scenes like this. But the other thing is, has there ever been a kind of cut or a kind of scene you have to edit where, like, no matter how many efficiencies you find, it takes the same amount of time?
Well, I'm going to jump back to an earlier thing you said about, trying to be more efficient in terms of cutting it faster. Well, yeah, because I don't want to waste the director's time, and I want to keep their attention and I keep their focus on the screen as I'm cutting, and we can stay stay in the scene without him losing focus, without me getting tied up in technical details of trying to open up tracks and all that stuff. So that's one thing about moving faster. But I wanted to point out, just because I'm moving faster in the cutting room doesn't mean we're going to finish the movie sooner. What it does is it affords me the time within the allotted budget to play more. I can experiment with scenes more. So instead of having enough time to just make one pass through the movie and, oh, there's your movie, every scene we go through, what if it did this? What if the character did this? What if this scene, we give it to that character instead of this one and make it about her instead of about him? So it gives us time to really experiment and play instead of losing so much time in the technical aspect of me trying to operate the software. Mm-hmm. So in terms of making a film, like in the DGA, the Directors Guild has rules, if we're a union show here in Hollywood, where the director gets 10 weeks to do his cut after wrap. So he's got 10 weeks of post, and then we'll preview, and then the studio will get their notes and things. But in that 10 weeks, if I can be more efficient, then we're not just doing one pass through the movie to get it. We're doing 4, 5 passes through the movie. Sometimes, Tom Shadyac and I work pretty fast. I could get 15 different passes through, although not specifically every single scene, 15 versions, but it's like, oh, okay, well, let's do this, or let's do this. We'd screen it for some friends of ours and go, oh, you know what? This middle section here, what if we tighten that up? And then so another pass and do another version. So you get a chance to play. So it's not like you're going to finish the film sooner. It's just, does this make any sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. You get more options. You can create more options.
Yes. I get more opportunity to work out options. That's right.
Oh,
so that's the speed aspect of it.
Scott, that was incredible. That clicked so many things in my head, and I think for the audience, that honestly, Scott, I think there's so much I could take out of this as well. But that is one of the advantages of having something like Lightworks and having a piece of software you can use so quickly, because getting that time back, it's not the efficiency then gives you more time, like you said, to play.
Yes.
And I think that really shows, that's why you get an editor. That's why you get a professional editor. If you are editing something, it's actually, everyone knows how to edit. But if it takes you, a day to edit a scene, but then it takes Scott Hill, in the amount of time it takes me to edit one scene, you can edit 10 different versions of it, including let's just go crazy and add in 100 cuts in one scene and just make it really dynamic and French New Wave. Who cares? But those opportunities to play, I would say, is really one of the most important things in the creative process. So yes. On that, is there anything else you want to say to our audience at home before I stop this recording, Mr. Scott?
My recommendation to everybody anybody who wants to be an editor, edit everything you can get your hands on. Just keep cutting. You can read about theory for the rest of your life, but until you get in there and start cutting up footage and putting it together and telling a story, that's how you learn.